Hey everyone, now we are going to work on our rough sketch, and of course I have a little box here. It's a little bit bigger than our thumbnail sketch, but it's going to be a little bit cleaner. Now this will be a different process to in comparison to a Crayola, because we are going to be working on tone paper, and tone paper is pretty thick to see. So sometimes this is just a rough sketch on what the idea is going to be like, clearer in a more clear way. However, when we transfer it onto our tone paper, we're going to draw it again. So that's kind of just how it's going to be. So it's not going to be, like our sketchbook paper where it's, rather thin and you can see through it. We can't do that for tone paper unless I find a way how to do it. But in this case, we're just going to have to draw a rougher version of what we want. And yeah, let's just get started. So of course, if you want, you can also have your rough sketch with you. I have it on my phone here just because I don't want to flip my page back and forth all the time. So I have it. This is my rough sketch. Whoops, that's a bit dark here. Whatever. My rough sketch looks like what I did in the video. And I also collected some reference. So if you want to go ahead and do and collect your reference, go ahead and do that. Put it on your phone, put it on your iPad, whatever it is. I searched up images that would help me more clearly understand the pose that I want to do. So for instance, let's see here. So for instance, I wanted to clarify on my hands. So I got some hand poses here that I want to look at. I got some more poses and the like. So these are just references that will help me with my illustration later on. So anyway, let's get started. In this stage, I can also change a little bit things. So maybe I want to change it to a different pose. That could be fine as well. Maybe I will make it a little bit more, not as close up, but maybe a little bit further away because I want to see more of his body. So his face is more upward, leaning upward as in the previous sketch. Actually, if you want, you can even do some side sketches. What you can do is you can even, draw some side sketches, like, oh, well, what if I want to do this instead? So maybe, what if I wanted his head to turn this way? What if I want him leaning over? Stuff like that, Before you do your rough sketch, you can also explore with other different kinds. And of course, you can always do more, you can always do different kinds of thumbnails as well. You don't have to do just 3, you can do more than that. But just make sure that when you're doing your rough sketch, don't spend too long on it, just very, very roughly sketch out what you want. So this is just one option, what if I did something like this instead? His epaulettes, his more very princely kind of outfit. Maybe I won't give him a crown, because I don't really like drawing crowns very much. They're a little bit, except for when it's on girls, but when it's on guys, you have to design it in a more masculine way to fit it, so it doesn't look too feminine. So that's one option, that I could do. Maybe I could land it up to here, and that'll be good. I don't really like it as much, but, that's something that we can work with. Sorry, moving the camera a little bit. Maybe instead I'll have a more frontal view. And maybe instead I have his hands more similar to something like this one here, where it's kind of like crossed over each other, which kind of gives a very kind of suave and very manly kind of look. So if I did something like this, kind of just drew in the arm, very, very flat and simple. His arm will be bending this way. Of course, you can change, your arm poses in a different way. That's another kind they can do, which I don't mind this one. Another kind that we could possibly do. Let me go ahead and zoom in now because I want to draw a little bit smaller this time. There. Maybe he's more leaning back, or me, kind of like more in a casual pose. Maybe he's leaning his hand here. And then we have his hand up. His other hand bent on the same chair. Maybe his legs would be more sprawled out because it's kind of manly, this kind of pose. So maybe his front leg will be more out, and maybe his other leg would be more in. So something like that can also work. I actually don't mind this pose. I'll probably do a more close-up version, like maybe up to here, even. So that, these are just some ways that you can rough out your image. Of course, this is a sketch that you will throw away anyway, so don't worry about, messing up. But this is just, once again, just a more clarified version of what you want to draw. So, yeah. So I'm going to go with that more 3/4 sitting view. So it'll be a 3/4 head. You have his neck, one hand length down. He's kind of tilting his head a little bit. Here you have his shoulders here. Remember to draw your boxes. What if I did a more standing pose instead? So I'll still keep that kind of pose, but maybe I'll do something more dynamic, something more like you're kind of looking down at him. No. See, this is you're looking at the raw process here. So I'm not going to edit these out. I'm just going to be just kind of making, different decisions. So of course, these kind of processes is important, deciding on what is the best choice of action when it comes to your illustration. You don't want to just stick with one and then that's it. You want to, try different things, see which one is better. So I actually like the standing pose a lot, actually. I'll probably do something similar with this, but I'm not going to copy the exact same thing. You don't want to copy the exact same pose because that will just make it kind of plagiaristic, right? So what you want to do is you want to just reference it. You want to just make it sort of similar, but not too similar. So here we have one box, and the second box, which would be a little bit smaller. I would say make it just a little bit bigger. Maybe instead of tilting his head down, I could go ahead and tilt his head up. So he's kind of like nodding his head upward. Maybe in this one, we could probably give him a arm that kind of bends, and maybe he's holding like a sword or something. Maybe he's like unsheathing it or something, or kind of holding it at his waist, where his sheath or his belt is. So let's just draw a very, very rough sword here. Of course, I will beef him up later, but right now this is just our rough phase. I'll drop his shoulders just a little bit because I don't want it to make his body look too squished. As you can see, it's super, super rough. But, this is the ugly drawing. It's not necessarily going to always be very pretty. Maybe his hand will be hovering over as if to like withdraw his sword, or not withdraw, as if to reveal his sword. I actually don't mind that. I like that kind of composition. It looks very, very strong. It looks pretty cool. It's definitely not similar to what I did with our thumbnail, but that's okay. Sometimes those things happen. So now we can design his hair. I don't want it to just be kind of straight anymore. Maybe I want it to be more, more messy. Maybe parted bangs here. Or something maybe more spiky, whichever it is. I don't like his hand like that. If you want to draw hands easy, just draw the palm box and then draw the fingers along with it. And just simplify. You know, I don't mind it. So here's his epaulettes. Maybe we'll give him a little cape. Give him some cool uniform look. Maybe instead of him about to hold his sword, he's actually holding his sword. So and then this would kind of go into like weapon design, but we're not going to go over that. We're going over more characters. So here we have his sword. Make sure that the ratio between the sword and the hilt is good. Well, that he's like holding the blade now at this point. So first draw in the handle. Maybe have some little decoration here. And then below that is I don't know if it's called the hilt or just the brace area here, where it's just kind of blocking out the blade. And the blade's here. So maybe something like that would be better. But I actually think I like that a lot. If you want to add a background to this, you can. Now it depends on what kind of style of background that you want. You know, some people make it super. If you want like a more of a like a dreamy kind of look, you can add some flowers to this. So an example of that would just kind of be like in a shoujo manga, where if you have like a really dashing character, they put flowers around there, and that's what makes it kind of almost a little bit comical. I don't want it. Well, I mean, since this is a prince anyway, I'm actually debating whether I should do that or not. And I don't want to make it too feminine, but at the same time, you know, it's kind of in shoujo manga, it's kind of like that. Let me think. I could also make a more graphic background. Let's see here. I do like this pose a lot, actually. I'm actually thinking of actually doing this. Of course, I'm going to refine his pose when we get into the thumbnail, or not into the tone paper, but let's see, background-wise. Little bit stuck here. I can either go royal background or I can go more flowery background. Now, of course, I'm just deciding it between the two because I'm kind of just like, well, I want to limit my options so I could choose faster. But let me see. If I make it just clouds, it doesn't really make any sense. You know, he's not in the sky. This is a little bit difficult. I could also make it a flat background, but I could also just maybe not even include any background at all. Let's think. Maybe simple is better. Maybe I just will have a plain background. Or I can have a curtain, similar to our cat image, but more royal. More like this is like a fancy kind of curtain. You know, that could give some context. That doesn't look too bad. Maybe I could add a column. Kind of just put them at the back somewhere. I think that's good enough. Alright, so that is our rough sketch. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.